I'm Candace Miller. I'm the Macomb County Drain Commissioner. Macomb County Public Works Commissioner is what they call it, but I always think of myself as the Drain Commissioner because we're in the drain business. And I'm standing next to Ken Verkest, who is the Harrison Township Supervisor. Currently, I just have to point out, about 35 years ago, I was the Harrison Township Supervisor. So I still live here, so I know the township is in excellent hands with Ken and the entire board here. But we are standing by what is called the Savan Drain. The Savan Drain is actually it's an old agricultural drain from way back in the day when the French farmers had a lot of ribbon farms that farmed all the way down through the township, and then they would eventually drain out into Lake St. Clair, what is now the Lake St. Clair Metro Park. I still call it Metro Beach. But anyway, this drain, all these decades ago when I was the supervisor, we could never get the Drain Commission to come out and do anything to fix this. And now what we're doing with my administration is we have a very aggressive and a comprehensive drain maintenance program. So we are cleaning out drains. Sounds pretty simple, but the thing is, what do the drains actually do? If the drain is not flowing, you have very stagnant water. Of course, all the culverts are all clogged up. As we're cleaning the drains, we're cleaning out the culverts so the water can actually flow, and as well as just making the water flow so that the neighborhoods are not flooded, that people's yards are not being flooded, that the roads are not being flooded. It stabilizes the roads. This particular area, a lot of times in the spring, you can hardly get the school buses through here. It's so boggy. And of course, in Harrison Township in particular, it's so low, the elevation is so low, that you're not talking about, a couple of feet of fall. This is how you know we're in Harrison Township, because you're about to hear one of our great airplanes fly over, Selfridge Air National Guard Base. And we love them, because I'll tell you what, that is the sound of freedom. And thank God they're one of ours. That's the way we think about it.
Absolutely.
Here. So we're delighted to hear that sound. It doesn't bother us a bit. But anyway, so as we're cleaning out these drains, there's a lot of spin-off benefits rather than just that the water's flowing. As I say, it stabilizes the roads, helps so we don't flood the neighborhoods, and all kinds of other good things, as well as making sure that from an environmental standpoint, things are done properly. We always want to make sure that we're following all the rules and regulations, the environment, that we're very sensitive to everything that lives in these drains. But we don't really need a big bed of mosquitoes here either, right? So this is really, it's going to be a lot of good things that will come of this. This particular drain runs essentially from I-94, runs through the center of the township, sort of. There's a couple of big drains that run through Harrison Township. One we already have cleaned out a bit, what we call the Ventre de Boeuf, another old French agricultural drain. And then this big one, the Savan Drain. And the township recently has installed something called the Beechwood Pump Station, which if you drive along 16 Mile Road, sort of by North Point, if any of you are familiar with that, you'll see the new pump station. And we're trying to get these drains to work, to go to where the township has paid for this beautiful new pump station, just because you have to pump the water, again, because there's hardly any elevation. And I'm going to ask Supervisor Verkest to tell you what the Beechwood pump station actually does, as well as why it's important that we're cleaning these drains out.
Sure. Well, thank you, Candace. First of all, I definitely agree with your comment regarding, as supervisor, how many calls you get and how many years we've struggled to try to get some partnership with getting these drains cleaned out. And certainly your move into that office has been a great help in that regard. These drains, as you say, not a lot of pitch. So these drains, we try to get that water to a certain point. The water that flows through the Savan Drain actually is going to be lifted twice by a pump in order to get out to Lake St. Clair. So this water flows to a pond right by North Point Parkway and Metro Parkway. We've got a pump there where we then lift that. It flows underneath Metro Parkway through the Ventre de Boeuf. And when it gets to Jefferson, again, now with the high water levels, it's lifted again. We actually have at the dam at Jefferson, we're holding back approximately 2 feet of lake water. So in some ways, when the water's high, we're sort of like New Orleans.
We're like Amsterdam or something,
Yeah.
right? They've
Yeah,
got all these dikes and dams. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
So, but this is a critical part, because that if the water doesn't get from the neighborhood through these drains to that pump station. The pump station's not really doing its job. It's doing a fraction. So we're so appreciative for the chance to partner with Public Works to get this done. I think it's important to note that while the township has funded a portion, Public Works is matching. So we're getting some grant dollars involved in helping to clean this out. But even on top of that, it's just the cooperation. It's the get it done attitude that is really great. And without it, I've been either supervisor or trustee for 10 years and we couldn't get anything done. And when we got something, it was just a headache. This is just going so smooth and we're really, really happy. And I see it in the neighbors. Everyone I talk to when we walk along the drain, it's great.
Well, we were just talking to the neighbor in this particular yard. She's been here for over 40 years and the drain's never been cleaned out. So that really is it's what's happened here. And I do want to talk about just for a moment the funding, as the supervisor has said. One of the things we actually did is I went to the Board of County Commissioners, the County Board of Commissioners last year. I told them, look, we're trying to clean out drains all over the county, in every community, every municipality, all over the county, and we need to have some money. And if you could put some money toward this, we could do a 50-50 match program with the communities. And to tell you the truth, we're going to run out of that money long before we thought, because everybody wants to do it, because we've got these drains all over Macomb County, haven't been cleaned out in decades. So we're just trying to go as we can, but I'm going to go back to the board and ask them to actually up the amount that we got last year, because it's a really successful program.
Very successful.
But come on down and take a look at this drain here. Hopefully our videographer here, who's one of my handy employees in Macomb County, we don't really have paid staff to do this. So this is not a professional video, but hopefully you can get a flavor of what it looks like now before we actually get here. And then we're going to walk along and we're going to get some video of what's happening with this drain, just, you know, couple hundred feet down the way here, where you're going to be able to see how it looks afterward. So come on down and take a look at this drain. Hey.
Good luck getting to it, right?
Yeah. There's just brush and things everywhere, and we got to sort of go through the backyards here to get to where we need to go to. This is Bruce. Bruce is a local guy that helped us with all of this. Hey Bruce, how you doing?
Good morning.
Good to see you. You're going to take a good look at Bruce's masterful work here, because this guy knows how to run this guy really knows how to run his machine. And anyone that's ever tried to run one of these machines, you know that it's sort of an art form. So what we try to do is figure out exactly what the elevation is that we need here, all the way along comprehensively, as it goes downstream, as it's upstream. Again, in Harrison Township, there's really no fall. In other words, there's no elevation. And if you have a lot of elevation, it sure makes it a lot easier to make water run downhill. In this case, it's just literally inches. But we can get the water to go, and it wants to go. And we just want to help Mother Nature out here a little bit. We can get all this water to the nice pump station that the township has built, and then get this water out of these neighborhoods. It is going to be such a market improvement. And really, that's what we're trying to do here. It sounds pretty simple, but we think that's what our job is, and that's what public service is all about. We happen to be in Harrison Township today, but we've done similar projects in Chesterfield, in Macomb Township, in Ray Township, in Bruce Township, in Armada, and Romeo, and you know.
Even Selfridge Air Base.
Even at Selfridge, that's true, I'm forgetting about it. Yes, we did a drain clean out at Selfridge. They hadn't been able to get cleaned out for a long time, and we helped them with that. And you know, I mean, you think about it, we've got to make sure that the base over there is in good shape as well. They had a lot of areas that were bogged down, they weren't able to use for their mission. Which, of course, we just heard one of Selfridge's finest fly overhead here. So we work together with everybody, and it's all about team as far as I'm concerned. So you're going to get a little bit more video now of what this looks like here.
Yeah, you can really see the before and after here. It's quite a change.
one of the things that we have found as we've been cleaning these drains out, where neighbors used to have, you know, fence lines or old wooden fences and everything so that they didn't have to look at the drain because they were so unsightly. Instead of that, what's actually happening now, once we fix all of this and do the bank stabilization, that we put down a mulch mat so it's seeded and everything, these drains are flowing. They literally become a tremendous asset. It actually increases people's property value because they've got a beautiful water flow going through their backyard, and they can landscape it as long as they're not landscaping inside the drain here, but up to it, etc. We found that it really becomes an asset to the homeowners.
Yep,
Are you finding that?
Absolutely easier once the banks are stabilized. You don't have this. The problem is in many cases a person's yard just has this eternal slope to nowhere. It's difficult to mow. You get calls, folks saying it stays wet until June or July.
Right.
By defining this, not only do you clean that up and make it easier to maintain, but as you say, you see spots where people now landscape around that
Right.
and make that a feature in their backyard.
Right.
And in some cases, of course, we're in a yard where a fella has a pretty nice deep
Yeah.
area. In some cases, these drains are awful close to the person's home, and there's just
Yeah.
no place to even get a mower through or
Right.
things like that. So when
Right.
you redefine that, again, it really improves property
Yeah.
values.
And if our videographer would just turn over here, you can see what I'm talking about with this, with these wooden fences. So that's what's been here for who knows how long. Once this is all cleaned out and everything, I wouldn't be a bit surprised the homeowner ends up taking that fence down, because it's going to be a beautiful view back here. And you don't need to fence it off anymore. So that again is just another side benefit of us cleaning these drains out. So what we want to show you here is, as we're doing the Savan Drain clean out here along people's houses, we're trying to be as sensitive as we can to their landscaping, of course. And as I mentioned a little bit earlier, instead of having fencing where you block off these drains because they're so unsightly, instead of that now people are going to be able to landscape up to the drain. And what we do is we put down what we call a mulch mat, and you know, we sort of fair out the soil that we take out of the drain. We try to do the best we can. And by the way, I will tell you, this is the best dirt I've ever seen in my life. This dirt we're taking out of these drains is so black you could grow carrots all day long in this black dirt, beautiful black dirt. But anyway, we try to sort of fair it out into people's yards, and then we put down the mulch mat. And sometimes this is one of these jobs that it looks a little bit worse before it gets better, I guess. But once the landscaping and that sort of takes, I mean, it could even be a year. By next spring, hopefully, it'll really look nice. And again, when it hasn't been cleaned out in 40 years, it's just a big messy job. No way to sugarcoat it. That's what it is. So I just wanted you to be able to see, if you just want to follow us across the street here, you can see what has happened here. In this particular location, our videographer can get here to see these culverts down here. These culverts, of course, they're running. The road ditches are running. Now the road ditches, that's up to the Macomb County Road Commission. But we're helping them because it all is in a system, right? So our job is the drains, not the ditches, and not the roads, the drains. But the drains are a critical component of making sure everything flows. So we actually have been cleaning out the culverts from the road ditches as they come into our drains here. I think we've cleaned out about 13 of them so far for this particular project. And again, you can see how deep we had to go here for this. But you can see that, you know, we're standing here videotaping this on a day where it's been dry for about 10 days or something. We haven't had any rain.
Yeah,
we've had no rain, and yet look, you've got water here.
Well, and it's and as you pointed out, the road culvert that runs parallel here, that's draining undoubtedly, you know, a dozen lots in that direction. Yeah. It still has water where that culvert has been plugged for God knows how long, and as you say, as dry as it's been, there's still water coming out of there. So there's all of this retained groundwater.
Yes.
And that's a part of the problem. Is what happens is when we do get a large rain, some of that groundwater should be absorbed back into the soil, but instead the soil's full because it's not draining during these dry times.
Never drained.
So it's a whole system, and it's got to be maintained.
It's true.